Hello there and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevičius. Welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast number 131. Today is Sunday, January 28, 2018, and today's guest is Daniel Vanden Broecke from Belgium, who is the coordinator of Het Orgel in Vlaanderen. Daniel received his basic music theory, piano and organ training with Erwin van Bogaert at the Municipal Music Academy in district Berchem. At the age of 18, he continued his study further at the Lemmens Institute in Leuven and organ teaching with teachers such as Joseph Sluis, Reitze Smits and Joris Verden. In June 1990, he obtained the diploma of laureate of organ. He also received first prizes in solfege, harmony, counterpoint, organ, and fugue. From 1990 until 2013, he was the organist at the Church of Our Lady Birth in Hoboken. There he also accompanied the St. Cecilia Choir and the soloist who performed various services. Daniel was connected as teacher to the academies for music and word in Berchem, Hoboken and Merksem in the city of Antwerpen, and was course supervisor for the Antwerpen's Volkshoge School. From 2000 to 2004, Daniel was coordinator to the Vlaams Institute for Orgelkunst that merged with the organ in early 2005. After 4 years, he has been responsible for the communication with the members and promotion of CDs, and now he is coordinator and realizes projects around the pipe organs. In this conversation, Daniel talks about organ in Flanders and how he reaches children of all ages with his organ-related activities. Let's go to the show. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me in this conversation. I'm so delighted to be able to talk to you about your organ-related activities. And we have one common, basically, friend, Lydia from Orgel Kids. And I think some months ago I did a conversation with her and her activities with this interesting educational initiative, Orgel Kids. So it's such a small world, right, Daniel, that we can connect with each other across many thousands of kilometers. And now people around the world will be listening to us also from 89 countries. Thank you so much, Daniel. You're very generous, and welcome to the show.
You're welcome. Thank you very much also.
Excellent. So, Daniel, let's start our conversation with going back into your early days. Do you remember the time when somebody introduced you to pipe organ and this story? Can you share with us how you first fell in love with the organ?
Well, it's so that when I was 9 years old, I started playing piano. My mother liked that I played piano, so I went to the music school. And it was also the time that everybody went to the churches every Sunday for the services and the masses. And I was a very happy person because the organist in my hometown was a professional organist. And after a few years, I loved more and more his playing. So when I was 13 or 14 years old, my father knows the man very well. And he introduced me with the organist, so I could get by him to see him playing and to discuss about the music. So that's the beginning of the love story with organ.
Interesting. Did you have any other interest besides music at that time?
Yes, also circus, everything about circus. So it was for me a very difficult period sometimes also because I dreamed about to get helping in circuses and drive with the big trucks and so on. But after a time, the love for the music was bigger, and at 16 years, I started playing organ.
Wow, what a great competition with circus. In my I think 2.5 years of experience of conducting these interviews, you are, Daniel, the first person who had some kind of experience with circus, right? So you are very unique in this sense. By the way, what fascinated you about circus so much?
It's the organization of the whole circus, so the transport and building the installations and so on. I always admire that you got a place in a city and there is nothing, and after a few hours you have a whole village of people from different countries, and all this everything is very good organized. So that's what fascinating me. Meanwhile, I can tell you that in Netherlands, you have a production about organ and circus also. So our circus artists make their performance in churches with organ music. So that's the two loves can be combined also.
Definitely, because something to look at it is very interesting, right? Spectacle to look at artists, the circus artists. They are like athletes sometimes, right? Very athletic, developed people, and it's very magical to look at them. But of course, you need to have some musical background at this. So that's where pipe organ comes in and plays. It reminds me of maybe cinema and theater, or how music and visual are related too, right?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. What was your first organ that you played, Daniel?
Oh, it was the organ in the church in my hometown, and that was the original organ is from Forceville. It's built in 1722, but the last years it was not very good anymore. It was also, like they say, electrified, and the quality was not so good enough. But I was young at that time, and for me it was wonderful to play at two manuals, three manuals on instrument near my home. That was
Mm-hmm.
the first organ I played on.
So you say it is from 1732, right?
1722.
22. It is like the organ from the Bach's day, basically, right?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Do you remember the feeling, the first feeling that you touched the instrument? What maybe you remember the even what kind of the day of us it was. Maybe you remember what kind of the part of the day it was, Sunday or not Sunday.
No, it was not a Sunday. The organist, he know I played piano at the time, because when I met him first, I was only playing piano. So he invited me to play at the end of a mass, a part, two voice invention of Bach. I played that in the music school, and he told me, "Oh, you can play it at the end of the office." It was a small mass in the week, so not too much people, and if I could play there. And what for me was the most beautiful thing was to make with a plenum. It was much noise for me. I could play my Bach piece. So it was for me a world who opened, that you could make such lovely sound with only a part of Bach, a piece of Bach.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Of course, cembalo compositions by Baroque composers, like Invention, sounds fantastic on any keyboard instrument, including pipe organ, right?
Yes.
Do you remember, Daniel, what was the number of this invention? What's the key tonality?
No, that's too long ago. It's now
Uh-huh.
about I think maybe 39 years ago, so that's a little too late to remember. But I know it was a two-part invention that.
I see. One of the 15, right?
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. So Daniel, since you played this invention, right? Do you remember the feeling of this organ? You said the plenum sound interested you a lot, right? What was so special about this plenum sound then?
Oh, I loved and more that it was powerful in that time, and the mixture was brilliant to the rest of the organ, and it was, like I said, a world who opened for me that I didn't know that you could play it all that sound on the organ.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, organ has a lot of gentle stops and not so gentle stops. And if you put all those principles together, then of course, full principle chorus sounds so brilliant, like real fantastic organ sound, like we are used to, right? And the Dutch tradition of mixture is very brilliant and I think crowning entire organ sound, right?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Daniel, what happened next? Of course, from your early fascination since 14 years old with this old Baroque organ and plenum sound, you were still probably interested in circus, right, at that time. How did you change your mind and suddenly discovered the possibility of becoming an organist?
Well, at 16 years, I started playing organ in a music school. And at a moment, there was a radio program on the radio where they spoke about the Lemmens Institute in Leuven. It's for me, it was also a mystery what it was. So I heard about it, and then I met a teacher of me of Aesthetica in my middle school. He was a teacher also in Lemmens Institute. So we talked about what was the school. And so I fell in love for the Lemmens Institute because it was the school at that moment where you could learn or to be organist in churches. So when I was 18, then I had to make a choice about to go to university or to go to music school. I to Lemmens Institute. So I did the exam to come in the school, and I was allowed. So I started to be the studies from to become a professional organist.
I see. So in Lemmens Institute, Daniel, do you remember your first organ composition or even exercise probably you played with your feet and your hands? Could you tell us about it?
Yes, the first time it was also in the exam to be allowed, and I came in the chapel, and there was a Marcussen organ, and with the teacher of the music school, I studied some pieces to play there. And yes, I was there like a little boy. I felt like a little boy to the big organ because Marcussen was a three manuals organ. And the organ teacher who was there to listen if what you could play, he helped me for the stops and the registration and so. And I played there, and I felt very little before that instrument, and also the jury. It were two organ teachers of the Lemmens Institute who listened to what I played. So it was also like the first time on the organ, and next time the first time, and it was also again a world who opened for me.
I understand, Daniel, that the way you felt probably is very unique, but also a lot of people also feel this way when they start to play the organ, right? The organ is magnificent, gigantic instrument. in front of them, and they're so small person, right? And they're taking part in this musical adventure. But they are wielding this instrument, right? And suddenly this small person, 18 years old student, has this power to control entire magnificent organ factory, let's say, right? Entire
Yes.
gigantic instrument. So it's quite empowering feeling, don't you say?
Yes, it was also, I had not so much experience about organ. I played only 2 years in a music school. So for me, I had not so very knowledge about organ, about harmony, about everything about music. So for me, it was very exciting to be there. And we had also when you did the exam to be allowed, you had to talk to the director, and so I came in his office and I said, okay, and what did you follow from courses in music? Okay, fine. He said, if you're not too nervous today, it will be all right. So it was for me. I will be not so nervous anymore after I spoke to him. And the week after, the day you had to play and to do other parts from music history and music theory for all. Yeah, I received a letter, and because it was a time you had no email and no computers, it was 1983. So I received a letter that was I was allowed. So I was very happy when I received that letter.
Daniel, what was the most difficult thing for you back then when you played the organ at the institute? Was it playing with your feet, or maybe coordination with the hands, or something else?
Well, it was the most difficult thing was because I had not so very much experience about organ. So the first teacher I had, he said you had to work very hard, and so in the few months I had to play the small preludes and fugues of Bach, and then I had to go to the bigger one, and all that things had to be very quickly. And also, what was very difficult, we had in the chapel you had two organs. They are still there now. That was a Marquesan. It was for Baroque music and three manuals. But we had also a class instrument, and that was four manuals. So it was very big. So the first time you had to play there, it was very exciting and nervous to play it. There was also on the class a very dangerous button for the feet. It was a red one, and when you touched that, all the registration went away. So it was also always very difficult in the years after, because when you played Vidor or very symphonic music, and you had lots of stops and combinations and registrations, and you put your feet on that stop in the with your feet, everything was away, and you had to start again. So it was also very you had to look at that you didn't touch that stop.
This is by accident, right? When you have organ with combination action, it's so sometimes dangerous to touch all those pistons by accident, and you can even touch them by playing. While playing the keyboard, accidentally hitting the wrong button, and suddenly your registration will either vanish or change to something you didn't expect.
Yes. Yes. We made also after a few years, when we know everybody there, we did also the joke that you had two organs. So when somebody was studying on the one, sometimes another organist went to the other organ and played the same thing, or when you had the final chord, you stopped and the other one played the same chord, but he held on. So you had to your first thing was that, oh, the organ is broken. Of what did I now? What's the problem? And that was the joke we sometimes did in the chapel.
This is a good trick, right? To trick the music professors and organ professors and the jury who is listening to you, and they are probably thinking, "Oh, am I hearing it correctly? This organ sounds like a double instrument, right? Somehow with double echo, and it all because of this joke of your friends."
Yes, yes. Yeah, we had a lot of humor between the colleagues of organ when we studied there. That was part of the studying to make some jokes or something like that.
It's interesting you mentioned the word humor, because organ sounds like a very serious and solemn instrument to a lot of people. It is associated with church and weddings and funerals, especially, right? So when you say humor, you could create some musical tricks, right, and laugh basically. So was it easy for you to change your mind from this liturgical solemn instrument to just a humorous musical adventure sometimes?
No, not at all. Because when I finished my studies in Flemish Institute, I was 23 years organist in a church in a small part of Antwerp, and I combined always some humor with the liturgy. Because before, for example, when it was some holidays in the city there, I always played something about. From Lefebvre or Vincenzo Petraglia, because it's beautiful music, not so easy to play, but it's also very humoristic in our thinking now, because I suppose when they played in their time, nobody wanted to laugh about it, but now when you play something like that, people can laugh and also learn that organ does not be always a serious material, but you can also play humor on organ.
Yeah, from the time of Vincenzo Petrali or Lefebvre, we have to remember that organ had to imitate a lot of musical ideas taken, for example, from opera, right? And composers such as Lefebvre or Petrali or Bergamo, Padre Davide, right? They took that musical material and transformed it and created a new musical piece right out of it, so that their audience downstairs in the pews could understand and hear what they're playing, because they knew those arias so well and they loved them.
Yes. It was also when I was organist, there was a year that the 1st January was on a Sunday. So I played at the as a final piece, the Radetzky March, because it belongs to the 1st January. So I played it, and everybody in the church stayed to listen, and they loved it that I played something like that. So they could live with my humor in the music. But on the other way, when at other moments of the liturgic year, I played very serious and Bach and so on. But because it's very important that you respect the time of the year, what you play as music.
Perhaps this is the key. You are so versatile, right? Liturgical year is so full of various occasions, occasions for solemn playing, occasions for sadness, for joy, for celebration, and also for humor too, if you think it creatively like this. So I think your congregation appreciated your musical adventures very well.
Yes, I had just one problem in all that years. That was that the 11th of July is the feast of the Flemish part of Belgium. You have Flanders and Walloon. And the 21 is the Belgium national feast. So the 13th July is it in France. And it was always, I had to play the national hymns of Flanders and Belgium on the 11th and 21. And the 13th was also on a Sunday. So I proposed to the congregation, oh, I can play from Balbastre, the Marseillaise. And in the first place, they said, oh, yes, it's a good idea. But when it was, I said also, I would play it as after the service, and I will also announce to the people in the church that it is not political or something like that, but they had to see it as a humor. Okay, was not a problem. But afterwards, there was one of the persons in the church who wrote an email to the priest and said it was a scandal that I played that and so on. So afterwards, I didn't play it anymore on the 13th July, but I loved it anymore also because it's a very big part of humor. And I suppose in the time of that Balbas lived, it was also taken very serious. But when you start to the canon and to play the Marseillaise in the church, it's not so serious now as it's looked at that time.
I remember also in my church, Daniel, I made a similar, probably joke, but it wasn't a joke. I played for a tourist group from, I think they came from Switzerland.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, most of them were from Austria, and two people were from Switzerland. And the tradition for me is to play at the end of the concert for them the national anthem of their country. So if people from the Netherlands came, I would play the Dutch national anthem. People from France, I would play the Marseillaise. People from Austria, their anthem, right? And here, of course, they're all German-speaking tourists, and I thought, okay, Austrians. So I suddenly, I had like a couple of days to prepare to get the music of Austrian national, beautiful melody with harmonizations, right? And I played it at the end of my concert. And then suddenly I received a comment from the leader of the group who said, hey, these two tourists were not from Austria, but they were from Switzerland, and they were offended. Because, you see, I didn't play the Swiss national anthem. So next time I will have to be wiser about this.
Yes.
Wonderful. And I also, sorry to interrupt your story, but I think it's related. One time I played for a group of Canadians too, but French speaking Canadians from Quebec, you know, and I played at the end Canadian national anthem. And there's very independent mindset. They want to hear a Quebec anthem, right? But I didn't know the melody, so they sang it to me in Canadian French.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's go back then to your story, Daniel. What happened later after the Lemons Institute and the church? How did you then later became professional organist, and what were your further positions?
So when I finished my studies in Lemons Institute, they offered me the place to become organist in Hoboken near Antwerp. And so I started there in the 1st September 1990. And because there is not so much work for teachers of organ music in music schools, I started also to give solfège, like they call it, I suppose, in music schools. But after some years, till 2000, I stopped there. We had the directors and me, we had some discussion about the way I teached the music to the students. So I stopped to give lessons in music school, and then a friend of mine was started the organization Flemish Institute for Organ Art.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something like what the work I'm doing now. So it was something total new because it was organizing events about organ.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first years, 2000, 2004, I learned to organize Flemish organ days with workshops and concerts and something like that. Also activities for the organ teachers in Flanders. And then in 2005, the Flemish Institute for Organ Art and Het Orgel in Flanders, Orgel in Vlaanderen, became one organization. So I started to work here as a volunteer.
I see. Wonderful story, Daniel, because now I understand that you not only have to play the organ, you have to get other people interested into organ, right? And organize musical activities together. So did you have to switch your mind to something else? How did you connect with those music lovers in Flanders and in Flemish organ days? How did you organize those festivals?
Well, the first thing that I have to tell you, it's because the churches here in Flanders are more and more empty on Sunday. So the goal from our organ in Vlaanderen is now to get the heritage of all the organs to be known by as much as possible public.
Mm-hmm.
So I have also to tell you, when I finished my studies in the Flemish Institute, I had to do, you could choose between military service or civil service. So I chose to do the civil service. And there I learned very much about coordination and make contacts with people, because it was there that I was coordinator in Leuven of organization who help people with problems, mental and also material problems.
Mm-hmm.
So we had in Leuven a lot of organizations who helped the people, but I was coordinator of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could work together with each other and something like that. So I learned very much about coordination, make contacts with different people and something like that. So it was in 2000 very helpful that I followed something like that way of working. And after some years here, I have to tell you that between this our orgel in Vlaanderen is started in 1990, and the first 10 years it was a very small organization, and it was all they organized one activity every year. It was Organ Sunday, and then they asked every organists in Flanders to make an activity.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2000 until 2005, it was more an organization who still organized that Organ Sunday, but also it had a trimestrial publication, and they produced CDs, compact discs.
Mm-hmm.
But then we saw that the whole society is changing. So now we have to work very hard on sensibilization about the organs. So we changed all our activities, and now we try to get new public. So when I organize activities, the first group I try to reach is children, because in Flanders there is an organization who says the children of today are the protectors of heritage of tomorrow. So if you don't reach them, you will get a big problem in the future. So that's what we now work very hard on. It's to get the children back to the organ. But the problem is the children are not going anymore to the church on Sunday of some small one, a small group. So now with, for example, the organ kids box, we go to music schools and something like that. And we see that now in Flanders, the majority perhaps of the health of the children, of the pupils of organ in music schools are now children of young people. A year or 5, 6 ago, it was more adults who played organ, but now when I go to examinations of organ, I see that now very young people play with very much enthusiasm the instrument.
You see, Daniel, you're so right. If we introduce organ to the children, to the next generation, they can discover all fascinating aspects that you discovered some 39 years ago, right? Because of course, organ is probably eternal instrument. You can discover so much of mechanical stuff there that interests children. They can take apart this organ box, right, and see how it functions out of glass, and the pipes are visible. The insides of the instrument is visible then, right? And their curiosity is also so important at this age. And if you can click them, connect with them with some special stories, adventures, and of course humor, then these stories about the organ will stay with them for decades later.
Yes, I always mention you have the beautiful picture of César Franck at his organ, you know it, and many people think that's the kind of organist, an old man with a beard and something like that. But you can see it on my website of Orgel in Vlaanderen. You will find very young children who played the organ, and that's also very fascinating that's now happening. What's also a part of Flemish Organ Day is a conquest for organ, not professional organists, so a kind of competition. And the last year, in 2017, we had an edition, and there were 14 people who played on the competition, and 2 persons were older as 55 years. We had nine children between 11 and 16, and 3 people between 24 and 28 years old. So you see, now it's very, very young public who like, very young people who wants to play the organ. So for me, it's very encouraging that you see, oh, fine, young people find the way to the organ.
Yes, I think youth in this generation can discover the organ and can later become interested in playing the organ for decades, right? And I'm looking at your website of your organization Het Orgel in Vlaanderen, and it's fascinating to see that not only senior citizens are playing and listening, but also kids are playing and constructing the organ, deconstructing the organ. All kinds of presentations are taking place. Very good visual representation. I see even organ and accordion in some of the slides too.
Yes, indeed. It was there was also in the beginning of September a sport event in near Brussels. And everybody could walk or with a bike make some tours. And there's also culture on the way. And one of the programs was organ and accordion. But we now have also, we did a program for Antwerp, was in 2030, European City of Sports. And we had a project for the city with organ, with Baroque music from Bach and Buxtehude, poetry and Tai Chi. So it was a new concept, but we had 5 times that the program was how do you say it? There were 5 performance, and we reached 400 people at 5 times us together. And what was very interested for me is that all the people who came, I didn't know, because after a time you know your public and you're the organists and something like that. But all the people I saw there came from the project and the concept. They came not from the organ or something like that, but for the total program. So it were 400 new people who came to that project. But perhaps some of that come back for other organ activities at another moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we have also organ, like I said, poetry, organ and dance, organ and circus and something like that. Organ and movie, like you mentioned in the beginning of our interview. So that's our things we are now also use here in Flanders to get new audience to the concerts.
Fantastic ideas. You have to think about those things, those organ initiatives, really outside the box, right? You have to think creatively and maybe connect seemingly unconnected fields like organ and let's say Tai Chi, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or organ and cinema, right? It's not an exotic art anymore. This combination, of course, can be heard all of the time, but still, it's not a regular solo classical organ recital, right? And if just in as an idea, if you think about one activity that children already love, right, and you introduce the organ to them like a combination, basically you win, right? You have to only relate to young minds this way, and even when you demonstrate the organ, you can tell other kind of stories, for example, of creation of the earth, right? Or let's say about aliens, right? Or robots, right? You could demonstrate the organ and imagine that some principles are sounding more like Martians and some flutes are sounding like from Pluto, right? 7 or 9 planets. So you just have to think really creatively and you win.
Yes, we have, yeah, absolutely, because we have also some programs there in Flanders about fairy tales at organ. So sometimes it's with actors who made the play and the organ, but sometimes it's also like the fairy tale of Baba, the elephant, with the music of Poulenc, and then you play the music on the organ, and you have the pictures who you project, and we see that children love it very much. So what's very important is, like you said, you combine new fields of culture, but what we always look at is that everything is with respect of the church, of the building, of the religion, so that congregations don't be to be angry after a production or something like that. So it's always with much respect. We see also that the last years that churches became more open to activities about organ, because they have to make plans for the future of the churches. So many churches in Flanders will be used for different matters in the future, not only liturgic, but also a social projects like that. And then before, for example, we tried that organ lessons are in churches and something like that, because it's also very important that the organs in the future are still in the good mood, like you can say, and that they will be played also in the future.
Mm-hmm. I just remembered one story when you mentioned fairy tales and organ music. In our church, Vilnius University St. John's Church, sometimes I do those organ storytelling events when I improvise for an hour, and people downstairs, not necessarily children, but could be children, they have a musical program based on some story, fairy tale, mythological legend, biblical story, right? Like David and Goliath, or
Yeah.
Little Mermaid, like Hans Christian Andersen wrote, right? And they have this storyline. They can read it, right? And I upstairs I improvise for an entire hour, and they can even close their eyes and imagine that in which part of the story I am right now playing my music, right? So of course it requires a certain skill from the organist to improvise, right? To be able to express musical ideas in a fresh and new ways, because if you want to be really creative, there are not enough probably musical compositions created for certain fairy tale or story or legend. You have to create right now, right? But if you can
Yeah.
do this successfully, basically people are so impressed, and they later come up to you in the balcony and want to know more about the organ, want to take pictures with you and with the organ. So it's basically beginning of the lifelong fascination.
Yes, and what also the power of the instrument is, you have lots of sounds you can use. You can play soft, you can play loud with a cornet of a hobo, something like that. So that's the power the organist has, that he can make very different sounds for the people, because sometimes they also think, oh, you can only play loud on the organ, but when you can give the demonstration about the different sounds, they also admires what the organist can do. And when you play, when they see you, when you play with your feet and your hands, they almost think, how is it possible? But that's also something we do now in Flanders, more perhaps in other countries. They make they put a camera on the organist, because the most of the time is on upstairs and nobody can see him. So they put a camera, and then they project what he's playing, how he's playing in the front of the church, so the people can see what he's doing. And that's also for some people very interesting, because when you have to sit in a concert and you hear the music, and it's very well played and all that's not a problem, but after a time you have to say, oh, where am I looking now, to see, to be passionate. But when you can see the organist playing, it's you give another way to interpreting the music also.
Hmm. Sometimes the organist is visible, like sometimes the organist in front of the congregation, and sometimes is not. It's in the back. So then, of course, with the modern technology and media, you can broadcast video stream to the people in front of the church, right, on the screen, and then it's so fascinating to watch the movements of the hands and the feet too.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, it's amazing that we can use all the technologies of now to make an old instrument like organ popular.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I don't know if Lydia told you, but now we have also a digital application on smartphone and tablet when you can build your own organ. So we put the organ kit's story in the digital app. So at this moment it's only in Dutch, but we are working to make it also in English. So when it's for children between 6 and 12 years, let us say, if you are older you can also play it, but it's more for the children. And they receive some questions about wood and sheep and something like that. And when they ask, when they give the right answer, they receive a part of the organ. And after the end, they have built an organ like the Orgel kits, and they can also hear some music about it. So now it's about a small year that it's now online in an app store, and but it's also a kind of how you use modern technology to introduce people to the organ.
Hmm. Yes, definitely, because Daniel, they all use smartphones and tablets, right, with their fingers and swipe all the time. They're looking at the screen more probably than the TV screen nowadays, right?
Yes.
They're looking at the smartphones all the time. And sometimes it is sad that people don't interact physically with one another. But if we think about the possibilities, then actually they're enormous, because you can go with your organ initiatives to them through apps and tablets and various video games, right?
Yes. Now the next step we would like to introduce and to make is a digital application for young people between 12 and 18. But that's our still plans, and we have to find a budget to realize it. But what we are doing now this year is to print a book about organ for children, and that's the next step. So we try to not only use the modern technology, but also the old, like books and something like that, so to reach as much as possible people.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, fantastic ideas, Daniel. I think this conversation will be very inspirational for our listeners all around the world to hear, because then in other countries they can take such initiatives and ideas in their own environment, maybe adapt a little bit what suits them best, right? But use your inspiration into other cultural settings and introduce the organ to children of all ages.
Yes. It was also a thing that we, like I perhaps already told you, when we sometimes we receive the question of an organist or a group about organ, and they say, "Oh, we would like to do an event about organ." So I tried to um, find organizations in the city there with different interests, like a culture center or a music academy, but also heritage organizations and the city to cooperate. And so we last year I had a project. It was 1 week, and there were different activities, like an exhibition about organ, and it was a two-part. You had education, how is an organ working and how is it built, and also over the organ heritage, what what kind of organs are there in that city.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the Orgel Kids activity for small children. There was also an organ concert with different academies of music where organ lessons are given. So the pupils played a small concert, and the culture center organized Peter and the Wolf for organ, and somebody who told the story. So you see,
Mm-hmm.
it was 1 week, and you have different partners, and afterwards, when sometimes I hear people and then tell me, "Oh yes, and I have the story about that organ there in that church when I was small." And everybody, when I meet some people on a project, they have always a story about organ. It's wonderful, because I meet a lot of people, and sometimes, "Oh yes, my father, or my uncle, or my brother is an organist. Of I know it's some about organ," and that's fascinating me, and it gives me much energy to go on with this work.
Fantastic, Daniel, ideas. I'm so delighted we met, we talked. Hopefully, we will inspire other people to follow your footsteps too.
Yes, I will say everybody can reach me for ideas and projects, and that's not a problem.
What would be the best way to reach you, Daniel? Where are you living online today?
It's the most easy way is that on our website you find contact details. You can send an email from the website on. There is also a phone number, I think. Normally you can reach me on the phone at Thursday, because I'm only working 2 days for Orgel in Vlaanderen. So Thursdays and Fridays you can try to phone me, but the most easy way is to send me an email, and you can do it from the website on.
I see. Let's spell out the website address, right? orgelinvlaanderen.be. BE like Belgium, right?
Yes, indeed.
orgelinvlaanderen.be.
Correct.
And of course, you have, I see, a Facebook page, Het Orgel in Vlaanderen, the same name, and also you are on Twitter too, right?
Yes. It's for now. It's very important as organization. You use social media, so
right.
that's why we are also on Facebook. I try to post every week one photo or of something, of one post with our own activities or activities we are involved with.
Yes, and of course, if they want to reach you personally, probably you are on LinkedIn too.
Yes, indeed. You can find me on my name, and you can always reach me like on that way, like we meet each other.
Exactly. Daniel Vanden Broecke. So DanielVandenBroecke.
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daniel. Have a tremendous success this year, good health, and many other creative ideas to reach the children of all ages in Flanders and beyond.
Yes, thank you very much. I can tell you that I have already projects for 2019, 2021, and 2023. So I'm still busy the next years.
Oh, great. Like writers, whenever they finish the first book, then they have to think about 5 books in the future too.
Yes, indeed.
And for the organist too, if you finish one recital, you have to think about 5 recitals in the future too.
Also, yes, correct.
All right. Thank you so much again, Daniel. You're a wonderful, inspiring person. I wish we could meet face to face, and I have a feeling that we will.
Okay, fine. And thank you very much for the interview. It was very fantastic to do it with you.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog, Secrets of Organ Playing, at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice, and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Plinkevicius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.